Yesterday, my colleague Claire Ross said media used to say truth instead of simply saying, he did that, she did that. And that the strength of the media was when we looked for truth and when we stood by something and tried to find the truth in order for people to find out what actually happened. Now the media interviews one guy who says this, interviews another guy who says this, neither of them are experts, and then they publish them as though it is fact. Legacy media is dying. But at one point, they held awesome power. And in fact, they still do. This Tuesday, when the legacy media showed up to the pro-Palestinian protests, much violence was abated because of their presence. In contrast, on Monday, a lot of violence still occurred because they weren't there. There were protesters who were dragged, kicking and screaming, people who were arrested, and guess what? The legacy media was nowhere to be found. People like me, indie media, show up to a lot of these protests. I have a lot of friends who show up, and they're published twice a year, they're published in small magazines, they're published in indie magazines, and they don't get respect from institutions of power. When any of us have to interview a politician, when any of us have to talk to somebody in power, we are forced to work twice as hard to gain the modicum of respect that legacy media ever does. But over the past 5 years, particularly since 2020, legacy media newsrooms are collapsing. They're firing all of their old staff, all of the senior reporters who gave them the strength and the ability to report like they used to. A lot of these media members switched to PR. It's actually a famous joke within the media community. Legacy media is dying. And in the void that they're leaving, fascism is filling it. I'm gonna tell you something. It's not all bad. In many countries all over the world, indie media is filling the void left by legacy media. In France, they have Hugo Décrypte. In Canada, we have Rachel Gilmore. These people are gaining more force and more respect than most of these legacy institutions because you know what? They're doing the work and people know it. This election, it was newsfluencers who had much more power than legacy media. Even the legacy media is reporting on it. That is going to become more and more the case. This is going to become more and more true. And in 5 years, as legacy media disappears off of the face of the planet, guess what? People like me, people like my friends, people like Rachel Gilmore will still be here to fill the void. Because although legacy media seems to be supporting the rise of fascism by not calling out truth, by not presenting the truth, indie media will keep fighting with no money, with no power, and by working to earn the respect twice as hard as anything institutional media is still doing right now. So keep going, legacy media, because every time you fail to report the truth, I gain another follower. And until you adapt to the realities that are in front of us today, that'll keep happening.